Hola, queridos oyentes. Espero que todos estén muy bien. In the U.S., we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, which actually started September 15th and wraps up in just a few days on October 15th. And many people wonder, why is Hispanic Heritage Month not a full month like either September or October? Why does it have this sort of running from mid-September to mid-October? And as far as I know, that has a lot to do with the fact that there are many countries in Latin America that actually celebrate their Independence Day during this time. Now, not all countries, but there are several that do between that mid-September and mid-October time frame. So this is a great time to celebrate Latino culture. And I thought I would bring you an episode that we actually did before, but I think it's extremely relevant right now because it goes to sort of how Hispanic culture, Latino culture has really become and is a part of American culture. So with that, I hope you enjoy this conversation that I had with the Vice President of Latin Music over at Billboard, Leila Cobo. Que disfruten. What if I told you that Will Smith, James Brown, and the Beatles all had a part in some of Latin music's most popular hits of the last several decades? Would you be curious to know how Will Smith contributed to the lyrics of Marc Anthony's hit salsa song Vivir Mi Vida? Or how James Brown influenced the music of Gloria Estefan and Miami Sound Machine? And did you know that the Beatles may have actually played bachata? You'll find the answers to these and more questions in the book Decoding Despacito, An Oral History of Latin Music. In this episode, I sit down with the author and Vice President and Latin Industry Lead at Billboard, Leila Cobo. She has so much to share about how she was able to get some of Latin music's most popular artists to share their stories with her for her book. We have so much to talk about in this episode. I know you will enjoy our conversation, así que vamos a empezar. Let's get started.
Bienvenidos! Welcome to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast, the show for Spanish learners that love music, travel, and culture. Close your grammar textbooks, shut down the language apps, and open your ears to how Spanish is spoken in the real world. Let us show you how to go from beginner to bilingual. Here is your host, certified language coach, Tamara Marie.
Hola y bienvenidos al episodio 121. Welcome to episode 121 of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. I'm super excited to share my conversation with the author of the book, Decoding Despacito, An Oral History of Latin Music. Leila Cobo shares a behind-the-scenes look at some of the biggest Latin hits of the past 50 years. In the book, she shares never-before-heard details of how the most influential songs in Latin music were conceived, told by the artists, executives, and producers who created them. In our conversation, Leila shares her favorite stories from the book and even tells us why one of my favorite songs by Romeo Santos and a few other artists were not included in her final cut. This episode is in both English and Spanish, so if you'd like to get the transcript, make sure you sign up to be a show supporter at learnspanishconsalsa.com/support. Make sure you stick around to the end of this episode to find out how you can get access to our Spotify playlist of all of the songs that are covered in Leila's book. Here's my conversation with Leila Cobo. Hola, Leila. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you so much for joining me on the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I love your concept.
Yes, and I have to tell you, I actually found out about your book from one of the members of my community because they just found it and they said, you have to get this book. And I went to check it out and I was like, oh, I was not disappointed. When I saw the title, I was intrigued. And for me, since music is one of the things that really helped me learn Spanish and get immersed in the culture and begin to travel and dance, it was really interesting for me to hear some of the stories behind some of my favorite songs. And I actually have my copy right here. I have it in español.
And I have it in inglés. En español.
And tell us a little bit about that. Why was it important for you to publish the book in both Spanish and English?
Because we wanted, and I say we because it was not just me, it was my publisher too, and my agent who was very integral in getting the book done. But it was always about taking the music, not just to the Latin fans, but beyond. We wanted everybody who could be a casual fan of Latin music, or maybe not even a fan of Latin music, to be intrigued and to then read it and say, oh my God, I didn't know this. I didn't know this was part of like us, so to speak. So it was very important that the book be accessible to everybody, not just the Latin fans.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording here that you actually have an audiobook too in Spanish and English. And I think that is a great tool for learning. So it's actually something I recommend that if you're trying to really improve your listening comprehension, your vocabulary, having that audiobook and then having, like the hard copy and sort of reading along while you listen is perfect. So I love that you did that and that you also narrated your audiobooks as well. So I think that's going to be great for those that are learning Spanish as well.
Yeah, I had never done that. I'd never narrated a book. And when they asked me to do it, I said, sure. And then once you go to do it, well, first of all, I didn't realize that it takes 3 to 4 days to read one of these things.
Wow.
Because your voice gives out, among other things, and your energy flags. So I had thought, okay, I'll just sit down and read it in one take. And they're like, when I first got the schedule, it was okay from 9 to 5. I said, great. And then when do we do the second book? And they're like, no, that's day 1 of the first book. So it was a challenge. And one of the things you learn by doing that is that a lot of words that you often use and you write, you don't know how to pronounce. Or at least in my case, since I'm not a native English speaker, I didn't. So it was really very interesting. And you sit down with the director, and because it was COVID, she was somewhere else. But she would stop me and she would say, no. And then she would correct my pronunciation. It was very fascinating to do it. So hopefully people who are learning either language actually could benefit from it.
Yeah, I think that's such a great value to provide that with the book. I always love to get the audiobook because I'm always on the run and I like listening to podcasts. I have a podcast, so I love audio as well. So that really helped me as well, because I think when we're reading in another language, like you mentioned, there were some words in English you didn't know how to pronounce. Well, I'm sure it's the same thing for people who are learning Spanish, right? They're reading the hard copy or they think they know how to pronounce it, but when they hear you say it, they go, oh, that's not how it's really pronounced. So I think that's just a really great addition to the book itself, besides all the amazing stories, which I want to get into. So can you talk a little bit about how you chose the songs for this book? Because I know that you are talking a lot about those songs that really crossed over and became huge hits and really put Latin music on the map in different periods of time. So how did you come up with the